This overweight boy is so awkward that one day his own clumsiness gets the better of him. While testing out the ancestral sword of his household, everything goes wrong. The blade ends up piercing his own body. Against all odds, he narrowly escapes death. Yet that near-fatal moment reshapes him entirely. His endless snacking habits suddenly come to a halt. In their place, he commits himself to harsh training. The formerly lazy boy spends his days running non-stop. He also refines his mana core whenever possible. Even rest breaks turn into more practice, as he trains relentlessly day and night. He repeatedly swings a wooden sword without pause. Exhaustion is something he simply refuses to acknowledge. Not even his instructor's orders can slow him down. He ignores every warning and stubbornly presses on. Rain or shine, he continues until his palms split open, blood stains the grip, and the wooden blade shatters at last. Within a single month, he sharpens every aspect of himself. Each motion becomes precise and refined. Staring at his battered hands, he feels deeply content with what he has achieved. However, the limits of the human body cannot be ignored. Eventually, exhaustion claims him and he collapses. Even so, the training never truly stops, and later, the excess weight vanishes from his body. Even his sword instructor is left astonished. His mastery of swordplay and mana techniques. So what could possibly drive such a drastic transformation? The answer lies in the fact that his body is no longer his alone. It is inhabited by the soul from the blade he stabbed himself with. And that weapon is far from ordinary. This tale unfolds from the viewpoint of a hero reborn as a sword. Across countless centuries, the blade passed through many legendary hands. Yet the deepest bond it ever formed was with one man, the hero Leonberg. Born a mere peasant, Leonberg rose to become a sword saint through unyielding resolve. He alone wielded the blade to its fullest glory. Though many warriors held the sword before and after, Leonberg was the sole individual it truly cherished. Together, they journeyed across distant continents, spending decades on endless travels, purging monsters and restoring balance to the world. In time, the final confrontation arrived. Their enemy was the White Dragon of the Frost Mountains, a massive silver-scaled creature that drained Leonberg completely. It demanded every fragment of his strength. Before the beast was finally slain, peace returned to the realm and Leonberg earned the right to rule, yet victory demanded sacrifice. And once the world bloomed again, the sword was laid to rest after ages of bloodshed. The blade was then inherited by Leonberg's descendants. Still, none could replace the companion it had lost. Each new prince who claimed it proved more disappointing than the last. This decline reached its worst when it fell into the hands of a useless, obese youth. The instant the fat prince swings it, the sword feels pure disgust. The boy is rude, spoiled, and utterly clueless with a weapon. The sword immediately performs a status evaluation. A system window reveals the truth. Adrian Leonberg, age 16, morbidly obese and severely weakened, stripped of his potential many times over. His traits label him as worthless, lacking stamina, and burdened by a mana sensitivity condition. Despite carrying the Leonberg name, his numbers tell a shameful story. He can barely lift the blade and proves himself all noise with no substance. His endless boasting quickly irritates the sword. After shouting the saint hero's name, he strains with all his might to raise it. He then flails the weapon wildly, frightening everyone nearby. As the fat prince charges without thought, servants scatter to avoid disaster. The farce peaks when he trips over his own feet, and the blade turns toward his exposed stomach. There is no miracle as he falls. He truly impales himself on the sword. Shock and horror seize everyone present. They rush forward to help the fallen prince. Meanwhile, the sword itself endures absolute misery. Still, the boy's death may not be entirely unfortunate. To explain, Adrian inherited none of Leonberg's virtues and was notable only for arrogance, greed, and incompetence. In short, he embodied sloth, lust, gluttony, and greed without restraint. Had he ruled, the kingdom would have crumbled, yet his fatal blunder is about to alter its destiny. The sword claims the prince's body the instant his soul departs. Days later, castle staff notice a shocking change in his behavior. He acts as though his memories have vanished. He even denies recognizing them at all. Even the master long accustomed to his antics. Soon, the king enters the room to see his son. At a glance, the sword identifies him as the father, and is surprised the king appears far more dignified. The king is disturbed by Adrian's rudeness. The teacher defends him by citing memory loss, and the knights urge a mental evaluation by royal physicians. After some time, the physician completes his examination. He finds no physical damage, concluding the amnesia stems from psychological trauma. The king remains unconvinced. Adrian senses the doubt in his gaze. The king warns that forgetting past sins does not erase them. Losing memories also means losing hard-earned lessons. This regression infuriates everyone involved. The idea of starting from nothing enrages the king. After berating his son's disgraceful nature, the king turns and leaves the chamber. Adrian, or rather the sword inhabiting him, loathes this treatment. It wonders just how awful the boy must have been before. Fortunately, one person still treats him kindly. His loving mother, who adores her hopeless son unconditionally. She even believes the chubby boy is quite handsome. The devoted mother is simply grateful he is alive. She cannot imagine life without him. The sword feels only sorrow for her, as she grieves for a son who is already gone. Darkness falls with the coming of night. Eventually, the cheerful mother decides to return to her private quarters. Watching her happiness forces the sword to seriously contemplate his current reality. After all, he indirectly caused the death of his dear friend's descendant, someone he was meant to safeguard. Still, he attempts to persuade himself that the tragedy wasn't entirely his doing.
Regret changes nothing, so the only meaningful choice now is to seize this opportunity and correct every mistake the former Adrian made.
This body is obese and riddled with flaws, so his first logical step is obvious: build physical strength. He decides to begin his climb toward power by forming a mana heart. With confidence, Adrian draws a deep breath and gathers mana, but immediately dissipates. The effort vanishes as though nothing ever occurred. His body outright rejects the mana flowing into it. He tries again, pushing himself to the limit. The result is another complete failure. Only then does Adrian fully understand. This body is disastrously damaged, as despair threatens to overwhelm him. A glimmer of hope appears through a servant's arrival. The maid delivers a tonic prepared by the queen, unpleasant in taste but extremely effective for such a frail body. As she urges him to drink it, dread fills her heart. She has delivered this tonic before, and past experiences make her fear another violent outburst. Fortunately, unlike the former Adrian who wasted its value, this Adrian understands its worth. He immediately recognizes the liquid as being rich in mana. Without hesitation, he snatches the cup from the tray, and gulps it down in one go, leaving the maid completely stunned. After finishing every last drop, he politely but firmly dismisses the maid. Once alone, he attempts to gather mana in his hands again. Thankfully, the tonic proves to be genuinely effective. Although the mana output remains low, he chooses to continue experimenting. He quickly chases after the maid who brought the tonic, asking if more of it is available. Several days pass by.
The greedy smile on Adrian's round face says everything.
He has finally succeeded in forming a mana heart. Under normal conditions, this would have been trivial, but his outdated body caused him to overlook a crucial factor. The mana igniting within his heart unleashes unbearable pain. His organs feel ablaze, and his chest threatens to burst apart. Yes, forming a mana heart has always been excruciating. Losing consciousness midway would mean certain failure, so he forces himself to focus completely, allowing the mana to synchronize with his body and claim dominion over his heart. At last, he overcomes the most brutal stage of the process. His effort pays off, filling him with pride. Not only did he form a mana heart, but this one truly belongs to him. In his former life, he only assisted others with theirs, but now the experience is personal. The difference overwhelms him with joy he can barely suppress. With the mana heart complete, a familiar system notification appears. This time, he is the recipient instead of the source. One window triggers many others, revealing that his frail body still limits the mana heart's full potential. For now, only two authorities are usable: Third Eye and Third Ear, both heavily restricted. As their names imply, Third Eye enhances his visual clarity. Third Ear expands his auditory range. He can even overhear maids gossiping about him behind his back. Before he can continue listening, intense exhaustion overwhelms him. Mana depletion causes his vision to fade. Naturally, Adrian despises these harsh limitations on his growth. In his days as a sword, he perceived everything without restriction. Now he can barely maintain the third eye and third ear for seconds. Still, he remains hopeful that increasing his mana capacity will unlock far greater abilities. While his mana pool is lacking, his hunger is not. Starving, he remembers he now inhabits a human body and must adapt to its needs. Sometime later, he reunites with his loving mother, who appears even happier than before. Her joy stems from learning he drank every drop of the tonic she prepared. As she showers him with affection, another figure steps into the scene. When asked if he recognizes the man, Adrian bluntly denies it, unaware this intimidating figure is his uncle. His mother hopes her brother can help restore Adrian's memories. The uncle dismisses the idea, claiming Adrian's memories were worthless from the start. The cruel comment reveals his deep resentment toward Adrian. For now, he offers only to help Adrian lose weight and build muscle. Though limited, the mother expresses gratitude for even this assistance. Meanwhile, the way the uncle stares at Adrian sends a chilling message. He realizes he is in serious trouble, metaphorically speaking. In the next moment, he is violently kicked to the ground. The man looms over him like a predator, declaring Adrian may not even breathe without permission. Only at his whim will he teach the family's most sacred sword techniques. This arrogance infuriates Adrian, especially given his role in the family's legacy. Being treated with such disrespect feels deeply insulting. Furious, Adrian rises and declares that within 6 months, he will earn his uncle's acknowledgement or submit entirely to his control. Should he succeed, he demands the right to make a wish, mistaking resolve for arrogance. The overly prideful uncle immediately accepts the challenge. Despite his bold claim, Adrian reflects inwardly, knowing full well this body will make the journey hellish. He coats himself in mana and begins sprinting to burn excess fat. The uncle suddenly senses mana flowing within Adrian and is utterly shocked. He halts Adrian mid-run to ask a question. Has he truly formed a mana heart already? Adrian proudly confirms it, eager to see his uncle's reaction. Instead of amazement, the uncle is irritated and questions who advised such a reckless act. The truth is harsh, mana hearts are techniques for low-tier mercenaries. With that revelation, Adrian's confidence shatters completely. Later deflated and shaken, he spirals while thinking it over, replaying his uncle's words again and again. The uncle then demonstrates his superiority by forming a mana ring and striking Adrian with it mercilessly. That single motion completely disperses the mana Adrian had placed all his hopes on, as the mana chain technique his uncle used is designed to crush a mana heart's aura and is far more stable and efficient. Even the Count Eli lineage that once upheld the mana heart tradition collapsed 100 years ago, and since then no one has dared to pursue it. Faced with this truth, Adrian has no choice but to step back and study the fundamentals of mana chains, beginning with how mana usage is classified. Mages typically depend on structured mana circles. Knights, on the other hand, rely on woven mana chains. A knight's rank corresponds to how many chains they can form, starting from a single chain up to the rare pentachain realm. After digesting the most essential knowledge of this world, Adrian realizes his uncle wasn't exaggerating, and a familiar term in the book catches his eye: altringent. Lost in reflection, Adrian recalls a man named Ernest Altringen who once sought him out, someone who practiced an art that was neither swordsmanship nor magic. The memory pulls a confident grin across his face, as though he has finally identified his next step. A fresh morning arrives, carrying renewed resolve. Outside, Adrian stretches in preparation for training. His uncle approaches and asks whether he studied the books given to him the night before. If so, Adrian should understand how foolish it was to create a mana heart. Yet, contrary to expectations, Adrian's faith in his mana heart has returned stronger than before.
The man snaps at him, questioning whether he is truly that stupid or simply pretending.
Adrian lets his actions answer, releasing mana and explaining that not all mana hearts function the same way. Predictably, his uncle dismisses the claim without a shred of belief. He assumes Adrian is no different from stubborn mercenaries blinded by misplaced confidence. Those same mercenaries failed to surpass even 2 chains before breaking down. Still, the uncle presents Adrian with a challenge. If Adrian can defeat a double-chain knight, the uncle will act as his guardian, fulfilling his mother's wish. Adrian needles him further, wondering aloud whether such guardianship is even worthwhile. The comment lands as a grave insult to the knight's pride. A man who boasts titles as Count, Northern Army Commander, Master of the Black Lancers, and one of the 5 Silver Lions, a quad-chain knight, will not tolerate such disrespect. He releases an overwhelming surge of mana, cracking the ground beneath him to assert dominance. To him, this alone should prove his worth, and it does. Adrian learns this painfully fast before the situation threatens to turn lethal. The nearby knights raise their weapons, ready to intervene against the Count. Only then does Adrian realize this challenge demands far more effort than he imagined. Not long after, Adrian lies sprawled on the floor, gasping from relentless cardio, all in an attempt to shed the fat his body stubbornly retains. The Count's arrogant face haunts his thoughts, knowing failure means lifelong humiliation. Upon returning to his room, he finds the physician waiting. While the doctor offers polite greetings, Adrian urges him to get straight to the point. Ordered by the Queen to accelerate Adrian's recovery, the physician offers healing magic, which Adrian firmly refuses. He promptly kicks the man out, having no interest in magical treatment.
Healing magic reverses muscle damage, preventing natural growth and nullifying his efforts. One day during a meal,
Adrian's older brother storms into the dining hall. Naturally, the sword within Adrian doesn't recognize him. A knight quietly explains who the man is. This is the third prince, a textbook toxic sibling, here to mock Adrian's near-fatal blunder. Adrian ignores the taunts, urging his brother to find something useful to do. Provoked, the brother shifts to spreading another rumor. Whispers claim Adrian made a bet with Count Belhard, one that pits him against a double-chain knight. The malicious brother eagerly volunteers as the opponent. Adrian has no idea who this fool even is. All he knows is that every descendant in this family is insufferable. The mocker is Prince Gelin, famed for his sword talent, a prodigy who formed 2 chains at 4, making him truly formidable. A maid interrupts the tension, delivering a stack of letters addressed to Adrian. He is baffled, having never received attention before, until he notices the subject lines. Many letters challenge him to duels or offer sparring, all thinly veiled attempts to beat him.
in short, they are scheming to attack him without consequence.
Adrian is furious at their audacity. He orders the maid to record every sender's name. Later, during training, the northern commander tosses him a wooden sword, determined to instill basic swordsmanship. He refuses to be blamed later for inadequate teaching. Adrian picks up the sword, irritated by the lack of courtesy. Suddenly, something goes wrong. His body jerks violently as his muscles seize. This makes Belhard wonder if Adrian skipped healing magic. Adrian mocks him for missing the obvious. Healing magic resets muscles, preventing growth. Balhard acknowledges the logic and admits healing was never his focus. He prepares to demonstrate a secret foundational sword technique of the kingdom. The blade moves with brutal force, slashing in every direction with precision, ending in a flawless spiraling finish, leaving Adrian speechless. Adrian questions whether this is truly just a basic technique. Balhard takes offense, explaining training swords lack sharpness and fundamentals matter most. Adrian suddenly laughs, realizing how swordsmanship has regressed. The art that slew the mad dragon is now treated as beginner training. His teacher looks genuinely shaken, though he warns it won't win the bet alone and suggests another mentor. Adrian rejects the idea, convinced this style is sufficient. His confidence irritates Balhard, yet he ultimately agrees to Adrian's choice. Training resumes as Adrian studies why the Dragon Slayer technique was discarded. He understands evolution naturally led to this outcome, but the technique lacks true dragon-slaying spirit now. Those who abandoned mana hearts forgot how to pour their spirit into the blade. Lost in thought, Adrian clashes swords with Balhard. The knight corrects his stance, telling him to use his blade, not his arms. He strikes Adrian's belly, then his legs, forcing proper balance and power distribution. Adrian recognizes his teacher's correctness. His weak body struggles now, but the technique itself is not worthless. He intends to prove its value through his own actions. More days went by as the boy's brutal training routine showed no signs of slowing down. After an entire month of relentless effort, the system finally acknowledged his success and congratulated him on clearing a mission. His extreme obesity was reduced to a normal level, allowing his metabolism to adapt and his body to improve, while the clumsiness trait vanished entirely. Continued training would now refine him further, and his mana reserves were steadily increasing. With his mana sensitivity disorder gone, Adrian's confidence rose with every swing of the sword. He clearly understood how far he had come compared to a month ago. His mindset focused on refining his technique by just 1% each day, until once again he drifted into thought. In that moment, his teacher suddenly shattered Adrian's sword. Despite repeatedly ordering him to stop, the two stood silently beneath the pouring rain. Adrian's trembling hands bled through torn skin as exhaustion finally caught up with him. He looked at his uncle in confusion, unsure of what had just occurred. His gaze then shifted back to the training dummy ahead. Both of its arms had been cleanly severed by a single slash. Adrian was left utterly speechless. Balhard roared at him, scolding him for recklessness that could have caused real destruction with a real blade. Adrian's palms were rough with calluses and split by countless cuts. The system rewarded his extreme focus with the super concentration trait. This outcome was clearly a beneficial gain. As his vision faded from exhaustion, Adrian realizes he could have died just now as Balhard catches him before he collapses. The uncle studies his face, muttering about the prince's infuriating stubbornness. Later, Adrian awakens in his bed, realizing he blacked out during training. He had pushed his weakened body far past its safe limit. Memories of his former life as a sword resurface, when he was flawless and wielded by legends. His wielders once included nameless war heroes, swordmasters, mercenary kings, and even the kingdom's founder. He had turned battles, slain hordes of monsters, and paved the way for future heroes. Gruhorn had always guided him wisely as both mentor and strategist. That was why he kept swinging his blade, striving to reach that state of perfection once more. Yet this fragile body would break down completely if he ignored proper rest. A full month had passed since forming his mana heart, and his mana reserves had grown significantly. Through meditation, Adrian prepares himself for the next advancement, one the system is finally prepared to unlock for him. His body can now draw more mana as the mana heart expands and evolves. His physical form adapts accordingly, allowing him to reap tangible physical benefits. By the end of the process, Adrian's mana heart responds successfully to stimulation. He immediately tests it by swinging his sword, officially reaching the level of a sword learner. He accesses the most basic aura level 2, visible through flowing energy around his blade, confirming mastery of the fundamentals. During the next training session, Balhard mentions rumors spreading about the bet across the kingdom. Because of this attention, he trains Adrian even more harshly. Though he is annoyed that Adrian still hasn't chosen an official opponent. The most obvious candidate happens to be the Empire's third prince, among others. Adrian knows facing a double-chain knight head-on is impossible, so he considers starting with a single-chain opponent. He asks Karls for an update regarding his arrangements. The knight confirms he followed orders and sent sparing requests far and wide. However, Karls worries about Adrian's intention to face so many challengers. Every one of them holds resentment toward the arrogant prince and intends to harm him. Adrian is already aware of this and accepts it calmly, his only demand being that his uncle oversee each match as referee. Ensuring no deaths occur should be simple for Balhard. Days later, the first match begins as the challenger gazes in awe at the prince's palace. His name is Taylor Talhaim, second son of an unremarkable baronial house. Years ago, the fat prince publicly humiliated Taylor's brother and father, shattering the Talhaim family's dignity in front of all. Since then, their name became a laughingstock, driving Taylor to seek revenge. When they meet, Taylor greets Adrian with formal respect. He introduces himself as a single-chain apprentice knight, dragging out an unnecessary explanation. Adrian mocks him outright, calling him weak. This only reinforces Taylor's belief in the prince's arrogance. Balohard senses Taylor's hostility and orders him to calm down before the fight starts. The furious challenger suddenly becomes a Westruck, like a devoted fan upon seeing the northern commander up close. Even Adrian believes his uncle is more deserving of royalty than himself. Balohard mocks Adrian for his disgraceful noble behavior in the past. Soon after, both fighters are instructed to take their positions. They lock eyes, tension thick in the air. Taylor releases his aura first. Smiling confidently as he advances, he lunges forward, aiming to punish the prince. Leaping into an aerial slash, he exposes multiple flaws. Adrian casually criticizes the wasted movements he observes. He blocks the attack cleanly, leaving Taylor stunned by the Mana Heart's defense. Taylor retreats to reestablish distance. He questions how a Mana Heart could stop a mana chain, and his reasoning isn't wrong. But since he uses only one chain, the difference is minimal and merely numbs his hand. The crowd suddenly hears an unfamiliar sound from Adrian's blade. Even Balohard is taken aback by it. This rare phenomenon is known as a sword cry. Unable to accept reality, Taylor charges again recklessly. The strike is heavier, yet Adrian defends without faltering. Their clash escalates into a true sword exchange. Blades collide repeatedly as both step back and re-engage. Adrian begins to feel fatigue creeping in, highlighting the stark contrast between mana hearts and mana chains. That single clash nearly caused his mana to spiral out of control. Meanwhile, Taylor's expression twists with frustration, reminding Adrian of his position as second son. Adrian mocks his emotional rigidity and stubborn pride. Regaining composure, Adrian sinks into deeper focus. He invokes an awakened spell, because the sword, divine or not, is bound to his soul. The mana heart responds to his will as color spreads across its once blank core. The dormant will of the Dragon Slayer awakens. Sword memories merge with the heart forged for dragon slaughter. The Dragon Slayer's skill heart begins to spiral violently. Adrian enters a draconic state, empowered by the dragon's will. From afar, the once powerless prince now resembles death incarnate, bathed in crimson aura. Taylor trembles in terror at the sight, as Balohard urgently demands the duel be halted. Driven by sheer resolve, the merciless prince surges forward with lethal intent toward his opponent. A brief flashback reveals that earlier, Adrian specifically asked his uncle to stop him if he ever lost control and tried to kill someone. That exact situation is unfolding right now, forcing the northern commander to intervene instantly. He activates a powerful technique that shatters the impact zone. The boy is violently hurled into a wall. Thankfully, Balohard manages to stop him just in time. Moments later, knights rush in from all sides to restrain him, believing the attack nearly resulted in the prince's assassination, a crime of the highest order. Adrian hurriedly rises and waves them off, unwilling to let them harass his instructor. After all, he was the one who ordered Balohard to step in, though he never expected to be knocked unconscious so brutally. The prince loses consciousness and, when he awakens later, his mana heart is throbbing violently.
His uncle's overwhelming strength caused severe backflow when taken head-on, but thankfully no lasting damage remained.
In the end, he still won the match, leaving the prince laughing in relief. That latter fades when his master and uncle approach for a serious talk. Balohard recalls the strange sword technique Adrian used, one he never taught him. Adrian explains that he immersed himself in the sword's essence and synchronized with it completely. What unsettles his uncle is that Adrian has never faced a real battlefield, yet he unleashed a murderous intent bordering on divine. His spiritual aura reeks of bloodlust, something Balohard finds difficult to deny. This reaction surprises Adrian, who expected a glitchy lecture instead. The northern commander scoffs, stating he is a soldier above all else, one who believes victory justifies any method. Even so, he condemns Adrian's uncontrolled bloodlust since a blade that can't distinguish allies is dangerous. Adrian argues that he is actively correcting his flaws. His uncle watches closely, curious whether the boy will be consumed by inner demons. After 3 days of sparring, Taylor finally admits defeat. Adrian thanks him sincerely for the days of training. Taylor's long-awaited revenge never comes. Adrian even mocks him lightly for failing to achieve it. He then instructs his maid to bring out a special gift, one intended specifically for the Talheim family. Aware of the old prince's past cruelty, Adrian knows it won't erase the damage, but hopes it offers some form of amends. Taylor is visibly shaken by the drastic change in Adrian's demeanor. Adrian bluntly tells him to get lost, deciding it's pointless to clean up every mess left by the former disgraceful prince. News of the scoundrel prince's sparring session spreads rapidly across the kingdom. Many warriors eagerly wish to challenge and humiliate the supposedly weak prince. Yet after countless sessions, no tales of Adrian's defeat surface. Instead, returning fighters praise him, painting the first prince as kind and respectable. Ordinary citizens even suspect royal censorship due to the sudden silence. Ironically, hearing this infuriates Adrian. The truth is those warriors were simply beaten too badly to boast. Adrian insults the nobles as useless trash only for his uncle to remind him he was once the same. Annoyed, the prince turns to his most recent opponent, politely but firmly instructing him to spread the truth this time. Adrian hopes this will quiet the rumors and critics. Instead, even worse gossip circulates the next day. People claim the fat prince fabricated the sparing outcomes to protect his image. Taking yet another hit to his reputation, Adrian ignores the chatter. He channels all frustration into relentless training. Each sword swing grows fiercer than the last, cutting through the air with blazing mana-infused wind. His mana heart burns vigorously with vitality. Asking Cowles about remaining opponents, he learns his final matches today. Adrian has surpassed apprentice knights entirely. Cowles explains the final challenger is a true knight with refined mastery. Unsatisfied with her family style, she joined the Knight Order to perfect her blade. Intrigued, Adrian welcomes the arrival of Arwen Kurgan. She strides confidently into the arena. Known as an elite Iron Light Knight, she carries titles like the Cliff Blooming Flower and Thorny Rose. Her elegance draws attention, and Adrian earning her presence is praise in itself. Arwen sharpens her focus, eager for battle. Spectators are certain she will utterly crush the prince. As a prodigy Iron Lion Knight, her promotion is already assured. Many wonder why such a talent faces Adrian. A past misunderstanding leads people to believe the trash prince provoked her. Adrian asks a maid to recount the incident. Nervously, she admits the former prince harassed Arwen, meaning this match carries personal grudges. Adrian grows tired of the previous prince's reckless sins. A memory shows the fat prince grabbing her improperly. She mocked him for treating knights like possessions. Enraged, he insulted her appearance. That sums up the incident perfectly. Typical behavior for a scoundrel noble, though Adrian now sees her differently. The word ugly couldn't be further from his mind. Arwen bows respectfully, believing he hasn't changed at all. Adrian desperately claims he's a different person now. Her furious expression suggests he's about to be beaten senseless. Count Ballard arrives to officiate the duel. He allows Arwen to formally introduce herself, which she does calmly. Ballard jokes for her to be cautious of the prince's sharp blade. With formalities done, both fighters assume position and the duel begins. Arwen's stance radiates icy resolve. Adrian eagerly anticipates facing a true knight. Arwen explodes forward with deadly precision. Adrian blocks the opening strike, but the immense power difference causes violent mana backlash and blood spills. Her movements remain beautiful yet lethal. She presses the assault, blades clashing repeatedly. Adrian is tossed around under relentless pressure. Arwen dominates completely and moves in for a decisive blow. Adrian is forced to activate the Dragonslayer state, releasing Bloodlust. The sudden aura shocks Arwen. Her sword is deflected cleanly by the prince. She retreats back to her original stance. Gasping for air, she carefully studies the way the prince wields his blade. Our boy is barely keeping his composure as well, because even though she only bears a single ring, Arwen stands apart from everyone else. At the same moment, Adrian activates a technique known as Judgment, drawing out the knight's parameters. The skill exposes her strongest points, weakest flaws, and even hints at her temperament. The mere fact that the prince can glimpse her level with such limited usage proves that he possesses the ability to defeat her as well. Like a budget Gilgamesh running on fumes, he erupts in crimson energy, pushing the knight to answer in kind as both surge forward at wild speeds, signaling the true start of battle. Several minutes pass before the scene shifts. By the peak of the clash, both fighters are visibly exhausted. With neither gaining ground, Ballard steps in, halting the duel and postponing its conclusion until tomorrow. The prince smugly boasts that he was just about to finish it. Arwen fires back with the same taunt, mocking his claim. Both are overflowing with pride and eager to keep fighting. Ballard refuses to waste the entire day and insists they both receive medical attention. A healer approaches to tend to our boy's wounds. Adrian, however, can only glare daggers at Arwen. She returns the look with equal hostility. The two deliberately turn away from one another, each silently vowing not to lose to the other. Day 2 ends in another deadlock, and by day 3 neither warrior shows any sign of surrender. Arwen's skill is undeniable, which makes the prince's endurance just as impressive. Right before the third round begins, Adrian brings up something he has been wanting to say. She briefly wonders if an apology is coming. She rejects that notion outright, her wounded pride as a knight demanding proper redemption. Admirable as that is, an apology was never on the prince's mind. Instead, he proposes a wager since neither side will yield. The terms are simple. The loser must grant the winner a single wish of any kind, regardless of scale. The knights immediately protest, warning that such a promise is far too reckless for royalty. Adrian silences them and turns to Arwen for her thoughts. She reminds them she serves the royal family, making such conditions normally unacceptable. Yet with a full chance to prove herself, she gladly accepts the gamble. Adrian is delighted by her resolve and faces her in round 3. Steel clashes wildly as both swing without restraint, each hoping to shatter the other's will first. It is here that Adrian unveils a move so swift and bold that it leaves the prodigy stunned, unable to believe his growth in just one day. As though he had been concealing his true power all along, they collide again and again, gliding across the arena in a brutal dance. This time the balance shifts, with Prince Adrian pressing the attack and forcing her back. He even manages to graze her face. Unrelenting, the prince closes the distance. Face to face in a near decisive strike, his swing outpaces her defense entirely. Their blades meet head-on. One sword shatters and is hurled skyward. The knight drops to one knee as the crowd witnesses the match's outcome. Arwen struggles to accept her defeat, while the prince firmly secures victory over Arwen Kugian. As for his reward, it is surprisingly straightforward. Prince Adrian Leonberg declares he wants her under him, but not in Gunnar's twisted sense. Carls had earned his role as the first prince's royal guard. The assignment was easy enough, despite the prince's reputation. There were no childish outbursts back then. Looking at him now, Carls recalls the brutal training the crowned prince endured even during storms. That dedication ended with the training dummy completely destroyed. He remembered the fierce joy of battle shining in Adrian's eyes. From that moment, the guard knew Adrian was bound for greatness. Returning to the present, the other guards stand frozen in shock, including Carls, as claiming ownership of someone, especially a knight, feels unforgivable. Arwen asks if that is truly what the prince wants. Our boy confirms, noting she is still only an apprentice who lost to a so-called scoundrel prince. What he seeks is the full potential of Arwen Kurgayan as a knight, a clarification that surprises and steadies her.
Adrian states his wish for a loyal knight,
Not one bound solely by royal duty, but someone devoted to him through every trial, made possible by his appraisal skill. Through it, he recognizes Arwen's extraordinary talent with the sword, which reinforces his resolve to claim her as his knight. Now her past comes into focus. As a child, Arwen dreamed of becoming a knight. She ranked among the finest of her peers, yet her talent went largely unacknowledged, so she pushed herself even harder, doubling her effort to defeat every challenger she faced. After besting every apprentice she encountered, her results were nothing short of remarkable. Even so, she was still denied recognition as a true knight. Now at last, she is being properly acknowledged. She is offered recognition, promise, and a future by the first prince himself. Almost too much to believe. Moved, she asks Adrian to swear to one condition: that he see her as a knight before seeing her as a woman. If he agrees, she will follow every order he gives, a demanding yet noble vow. Their eyes meet as Adrian accepts without hesitation. The prodigious knight kneels before the prince she now recognizes, pledging her life to Adrian Leonberg. The onlookers are left speechless as he responds to her oath. The first prince formally bestows knighthood upon her. His words echo a scene reminiscent of Jaime knighting Brian in Game of Thrones. The next scene shows Arwen training with relentless focus. Her peers are stunned that she pledged herself to such a notorious prince. Rumors spread accusing her of secret indecency and claiming she serves as his hidden mistress. These foolish whispers grate on our boy, whose terrible reputation clings to him like Lloyd Fronteras. To most, he remains nothing but filth. Watching the prince endure this, the royal guard recalls Adrian's words from that decisive day. On the duel's final day, Adrian said he did not desire a knight bound only by obligation. Those words struck Carls deeply, yet the prince stands by them, knowing duty could reassign him elsewhere. To ease him, Adrian offers that Carls may swear an oath like Arwen's if he wishes. With earnest eyes, the guard asks if such a vow would be accepted. To everyone's surprise, our boy refuses. He admits he has no interest in possessing Carls or guiding his growth. It sounds like a casual remark at first, but our boy truly means what he says, setting that aside for now. Adrian soon receives an official notice from the royal family. It informs him that his probation has been lifted, and he is invited to the upcoming banquet, shockingly nearly 2 months earlier than scheduled. Despite the king's earlier fury, something clearly caused a sudden change of heart. The prince has no idea what the king is thinking and frankly doesn't care about the probation ending. He never planned on leaving the palace regardless, so the news barely affects him. Still, one particular detail in the letter catches Adrian's eye. It is a fresh invitation addressed directly to the first prince. The maid hands it over, prompting him to open and read through it. The event is described as a social gathering for young nobles. It's hosted at a club the scoundrel prince used to frequent. The maid explains it as a morally questionable place, strongly hinting at alcohol and women. Unwilling to relapse into old habits, Adrian immediately rejects what he sees as a pointless event. That is until he checks the back of the invitation. The letter bears the name Bernardo of the Ely family, supposedly his friend, a name that stirs a distant memory. Adrian recalls his uncle mentioning that the Ely family once supported mana heart usage before collapsing a century ago. Curious about his friend's lineage, the prince decides to attend after all, quietly hoping the Ely family hasn't completely fallen apart. 4 months after inhabiting Adrian Leonberg's body, the young prince has shed a massive amount of weight. He commissions a tailor for a custom outfit matching his refined taste, the most shocking part being his slimmed-down figure. He now looks more like a fashion model than a rolling boulder, leaving even himself stunned by the change. His tailor is utterly impressed, so Adrian entrusts him with creating a second palace outfit. He does ask him to wait though, as his body may continue to change. The next scene shows the prince heading out to attend the social event. Adrian is painfully aware that his status forces constant escort by guards and attendants. It becomes overwhelming when he suddenly notices a scar running along his maid's neck. It turns out the wound came from a mistake she once made, and the former obese prince punished her for it, something Adrian deeply loathes about his past self. Despite seeing her often, he had never once asked her name. He finally does and learns she is called Adelia Byron. The surname immediately triggers something in Adrian's memory, as the Byron family barely appears in modern noble records. Long ago, before cities existed, many races thrived besides humans, who were enslaved and slaughtered for their weakness. That changed after the Great War, when humanity seized its fate and rose as the dominant race. Among their champions were the legendary 5 electors. One of them wielded the sword known as Gruhorn, a woman who faced down massive hordes of towering monsters, leaving many to wonder what she and her blade did after the war. She later slew Edda, king of the giants, in a single decisive strike.
That act ended an era of oppression and earned her the title Iron-Blooded Sword Marquis Ags Byron.
She was utterly unhinged, cursing monsters while hacking them apart, swearing relentlessly without restraint, stringing profanity together like rapid-fire rap lyrics. Even Gruhorn itself seemed uncomfortable with her mouth. The mere memory of her leaves Adrian shaken, which makes it shocking to see her descendants standing before him. He can't help but wonder how such a legendary bloodline fell to obscurity. Carl interrupts to announce they've arrived at their destination. Adrian steps out of the carriage, planning to speak with Adelia later, leaving both the maid and his guard visibly confused. Outside, a silver-haired man warmly greets him, Bernardo of the Ely family. Bernardo expresses heartfelt gratitude for Adrian's transformation. Oddly enough, Adrian quickly notices something unusual, which sparks Bernardo's curiosity. Adrian assures him that attending tonight was the right choice, promising an exciting evening. They soon arrive inside a club filled with drunken nobles mocking one another. The venue is packed to capacity. Bernardo is taken aback by the prince's demeanor. Normally the scoundrel prince would be drinking and flirting, yet now he remains silent. Adrian's very presence feels different, heavier than before. When a drunk approaches to bring up rumors of his victory over Arwen, Adrian doesn't respond at all. The room buzzes with talk of his triumph, with men crudely speculating about Arwen beneath her armor. Calmly, Adrian asks the man if he has any siblings. The man mentions a younger brother, greatly relieving the prince, because Adrian fully intends to kill this man and throws a punch with terrifying force. The blow sends him flying across the room. The sudden violence shocks everyone into instant sobriety. Even Bernardo freezes, while Adrian seems oddly pleased the man has a brother. It means he can crush this man without wiping out the family line. The victim screams in agony as the cold prince declares the younger brother the new heir. The beating continues without mercy. Adrian's brutality horrifies the entire crowd. The man has no idea why he's being brutally punished. Adrian uses this moment to make an example of him. He announces he will no longer tolerate being treated like trash, even if people see him that way. His dramatic speech leaves the party utterly confused. To make his point clearer, Adrian throws another punch. After unleashing a relentless barrage of blows, he summons Bernardo, who drops to his knees immediately. Terrified of sharing the same fate, Bernardo remembers Adrian's earlier promise of entertainment. He has no idea how the prince changed so drastically. Adrian orders him to summon the royal knights. Bernardo bolts off at full speed to comply. The remaining guests stand frozen in silence. Adrian commands the women in the back to leave immediately, drawing the attention of one specific man. The man attempts to quietly slip away. Adrian notices but allows him to leave with the women, on the condition that he accepts the same punishment inflicted earlier. The threat alone terrifies every man present, as nothing is more horrifying than that fate. Adrian reminds them they showed blatant disrespect by refusing to kneel earlier, mocking him and insulting his knight in the process. He demands proper charges and punishment for disgracing royalty. The royal guards arrive, led by Carls, who brands the men traitors and orders their arrest. Adrian eagerly gives the final command, ensuring none escape justice. After the incident, the prince is summoned before the king for yet another heated confrontation that threatens disorder. 14 children of noble families were detained under a wide range of accusations. The king is furious that his son openly wielded royal authority and dragged entire households into punishment, knowing full well the backlash 14 families could cause. Adrian understands his father perfectly and points out the fear driving his anger. He then coldly remarks that every one of those people were social rejects and beyond redemption anyway. He even advises his father to send letters to certain parties, namely the siblings of the arrested troublemakers. Hearing this, the king dismisses him, and the prince leaves without the slightest concern. Shifting back to his meeting with the maid, Adrian tries his best to calm Adelia. She breaks down sobbing, unable to understand what crime she committed to deserve this. She resembles a wounded puppy, shattered by the cruelty inflicted by the former prince. Her family does not even qualify as proper nobility. Even the Leonberg descendants seem unaware of the Byron name's importance. It is as though history itself was erased, with Byrne's unmatched legacy forgotten. Though the Byron line ended, Adrian clearly sees dormant brilliance in Adelia's sword potential, marking her as a hidden S rank with extreme traits. She carries Butcher, which awakens at the sight of blood, and War Maniac, showing obsession with combat, yet also fragile heart and caregiver traits that define her gentle nature. Her combat power is overwhelming, yet none of her traits grant control once she loses herself. It reaches a point where even Adrian considers unleashing her destructive instincts upon the world. Still, letting such rare S-rank talent go unused would be unforgivable. He then reflects on her slave mentality trait, meaning she finds fulfillment in devoted service. Using that, Adrian demands she swear absolute loyalty to him. The request confuses her, since she already serves him as a maid. Adrian clarifies that he wants more, ordering her to become his knight immediately. The timid girl collapses emotionally, refusing such an honor and insisting she is unworthy. Adrian reassures her, revealing his knowledge of her lineage and promising to shoulder responsibility. In return, she must swear unquestioning loyalty and obedience. If she cannot restrain her madness alone, Adrian plans to bind that control to himself. At first, she doubts whether he would truly protect her family. His firm promise, even offering to bring them to the capital, fills her with overwhelming joy. Moved to tears, she swears her life to the first prince, chanting her oath just as Arwen once did. Adrian accepts the bond with satisfaction and officially designates her as a servant bound to obey his commands absolutely. He gently pats her hand, lighting her face with happiness. Even so, Adrian feels uneasy, questioning whether he chose correctly. He reflects on the palace rumors since taking over this body, whispers about his silence and instability. Tales circulate of the former prince abusing noble children and tossing them into dungeons, followed by the newest scandal, that he elevated a mere maid into knighthood, someone rumored to have never held a blade. Adrian knows hatred will follow him regardless, and even his chosen knight is twisted into rumors of a growing harem. What he despises most is how others feel entitled to judge his life, never expecting this choice to erupt into such chaos. He imagines the king fuming, convinced he must clean up his son's mess again. His uncle's familiar curses echo in his mind, and he envisions his younger brother sneering with smug superiority. These thoughts drag Adrian deeper into frustration and anxiety. Suddenly, another maid announces the queen's arrival, sending Adrian into silent panic as he begs the gods for mercy. Already drained from conflict, his mother scolds him harshly, accusing him of reverting to his disgraceful past. She declares it is time for him to properly enter society and take a wife. According to her, marriage will anchor him and end his reckless wandering, leaving Adrian baffled. Ignoring his confusion, the queen orders him to listen, insisting her decision is final and absolute. She leaves him stunned and abandoned, unsure of his next move. Later, Adrian summons Adelia, who sits before him trembling with fear. He explains matters calmly as she nervously asks if she will truly gain mana, which he confirms will be a mana heart. He channels his own mana and shapes a heart within her, lamenting how the world forgot the legendary Sword Queen. At least he remembers her every detail etched into memory. He recalls her path, the living movement of her blade, and her effortless mastery. Believing this destiny belongs to Adelia, he awakens it, recalling the proud rhythm of the Sword Queen's mana heart. The mana heart finally stabilizes within Adelia. A system notice confirms the imprint's success. Golden light radiates from her chest as she whispers in awe, questioning if this is truly mana. When finished, Adrian explains the refinement method and instructs her to practice whenever possible. Adelia suddenly grows uneasy. Her concern shifts when Adrian collapses, exhausted by the immense strain of creating the heart. She rushes to help, but he waves her off, insisting he is merely tired. Hesitating, she asks why someone like him would choose a maid like her, prompting Adrian to dismiss her and order her away. When she hesitates, he asks why she stares at him like a lost puppy. Adelia bows deeply, fear and reverence mixing as she vows eternal loyalty. Satisfied, Adrian reminds her never to forget he is her master. She treasures those words as an honor. As Adrian turns away, Adelia quietly thinks she may remember that promise differently than he expects. A few days later, Kales reports to the prince regarding Bernardo Ali. He explains Bernardo was taken as a witness and placed under strict isolation until trial. Adrian is surprised trials even exist and casually asks if he must attend, learning royalty never testifies. Relief washes over him instantly. Yet unease follows as he senses the trial is being treated far too seriously. Adrian turns to Adelia and asks about her condition, startling her with unexpected concern. He asks whether her mana has stabilized, and she confirms it has. Hearing this, Adrian rises and declares she will now train alongside him. He orders her to change and meet him at the training grounds. He tells her to leave the cleaning cloth behind, as she is a knight from now on. At the grounds, Adrian stretches calmly and methodically. Before he settles in, someone interrupts him. His uncle Belhard appears, provoking sharp sarcasm from Adrian. Adrian's attention drifts to a girl struggling to run across the field. He tells Belhard he plans to make her a knight, referencing the circulating rumors. The declaration immediately enrages Belhard. Belahard accuses him of reckless foolishness, and Adrian snaps back, their argument escalating loudly, until Adelia completes her 10th lap and collapses onto the ground. Belahard does not even look at her. Gasping and shaking, Adelia apologizes profusely, but Adrian cuts her off and places a wooden sword in her hands. He explains that today's lesson will focus only on basic stances. He demonstrates simple movements with calm precision, then asks her to imitate them. What follows leaves everyone frozen. Like a seasoned dancer, Adelia begins to move. Her footwork flows effortlessly, her posture flawless, the sword gliding with unexpected elegance. Both Belahard and Adrian stare in stunned silence. She perfectly mirrors his techniques after observing them a single time. When she finishes, she looks to him and gently asks whether she performed them correctly. A chill runs down Adrian's spine as fear grips him for the first time. At this pace, she may surpass him far sooner than expected. He bitterly reflects that authority only holds when the weak fear the strong. If she grows beyond him, she could become a threat. His thoughts shatter when he notices Belahard staring at Adelia with a predatory gleam. Adrian steps closer and jabs his uncle lightly. He warns him to restrain himself and abandon any impure thoughts about her. Belahard simply sneers and laughs it off. He mocks Adrian, saying he is still a beginner who has wielded a sword for only months, and claims someone like him cannot handle such terrifying potential. That insult crosses Adrian's limit. He refuses to be belittled any further. His mana heart roars awake, the same heart that carries the depths of the giant king, of the light dragon and countless beings who bathed in rivers of blood. A fragment of his soul answers his fury, red flames coiling around him as his presence erupts outward. Adrian fixes Belahard with an icy, commanding stare. His voice is heavy and absolute as he declares that Adelia belongs to him. He warns his uncle never to look at or think about Adelia again, because he despises anyone who tries to seize what is not theirs. In that instant, Adrian realizes his grip on reality is slipping. His senses sink into a cold, empty void where neither life nor death can be felt. He immediately understands the danger, his body nearing fusion with the sword. His soul risks being devoured by the demonic blade, Blackhorn. Adrian knows he cannot let that happen. He struggles against the pull. Facing his inner demons, he forces the demonic power back into its prison. Slowly, he returns to himself as Prince Adrian, just in time to hear the end of his uncle's speech. Belahard speaks grandly of how a single knight can save 10,000 soldiers, and how an exceptional knight can shield hundreds more. Adrian barely pays attention. To him, his uncle is no longer family but the ruthless frontier commander who leads armies through death. Even so, Adrian has no interest in the lecture. His indifference irritates Belahard, who begins berating him until Adelia finally speaks up. She declares that her body and soul belong to Adrian, and that she will not obey Belahard. Adrian feels pride spark within him and smirks at his uncle. Calmly, he says his original goal was merely to help her lose weight, and now he has nothing more to teach. He orders his uncle to leave and stop meddling in his affairs. Belahard storms off, rigid and visibly furious. Even afterward, he keeps returning to the palace, watching Adelia train from afar. Forbidden from interfering, the uncle can only observe, and his silent frustration oddly amuses Adrian. Before long, Adelia takes her stance once more. Adrian can hardly believe it. She has already grasped the sword's renaissance. He applauds, sincerely impressed by her growth. For the first time, Adelia herself looks proud, though the calm moment quickly ends. Belahard interrupts again, demanding to know if Adrian taught her the mana heart. When Adrian confirms it, his uncle's rage explodes. He shouts that Adrian wasted her talent with foolish shortcuts instead of guarding the knowledge. Adrian snaps and orders him to leave immediately. Belahard curses him, claiming Adrian destroyed unimaginable potential with his arrogance. Adrian stays composed and instructs his guard to escort Belahard out. Refusing to be touched, the uncle storms away on his own. After the tension lifts, a quiet moment settles. Adelia hesitantly asks if the techniques she is learning are truly just cheap tricks. Adrian firmly denies it, saying his uncle does not understand the truth. He explains that this era has forgotten what a true mana heart really is. If they remembered, they would never have discarded it so carelessly. With quiet conviction, Adrian promises she will soon witness real mana power. Later, the uncle returns to the training ground and sets a wooden sword before Adrian. He demands proof and declares he will fight using only a single ring. If Adrian forces him back even half a step, he will acknowledge Adrian's strength and wisdom. Adrian picks up the sword and calmly asks about the wager. Belahard says victory earns one wish, including secret family techniques. Though it is not Adrian's true desire, he accepts without hesitation. Adrian charges instantly, aiming straight for his uncle's throat. Belahard smirks, saying it was obvious Adrian would target the neck. As expected, Adrian strikes at his throat again, and again relentlessly. Each attack is sharp and fast, yet the uncle evades effortlessly. He dodges until blocking Adrian's blade and gently pushes him back, asking mockingly if that is all he has. He shoves Adrian away and laughs at him. Questioning whether Adrian has already given up, Adrian clenches his teeth. His uncle is unbearable, yet undeniably powerful. Terrifyingly strong and clever, he waits for Adrian to draw out mana to crush him. Adrian refuses to give him that satisfaction. Instead, he begins speaking softly to himself. He reflects on how centuries ago countless mana hearts existed, and knights with mana hearts achieved impossible feats. Yet later, people abandoned mana hearts for newer techniques. Over time, mana chains were believed superior to mana hearts. Hearing this, Ballard asks what Adrian is rambling about, and Adrian calmly says he rejects that belief. He adds that the comparison itself is fundamentally flawed. Adrian states mana hearts were never weak, only their wielders were, then asks if Bellhard knows the heroic martial poem. Bellhard snaps, telling him to stop talking and fight instead of reciting poetry. Adrian smirks, calling Bellhard a fool for dismissing mana hearts. With that, Adrian begins reciting the poem etched into his soul. He sings of countless victories, and as the words flow, the heroic martial poem takes form. Power surges through him with each verse, flooding his body and blade. His sword begins to glow as the system confirms the poem's effects, mana surging around him. Bellard remains unimpressed, claiming none of it matters. As long as Adrian relies on a mana heart, it cannot surpass mana chains. Adrian charges forward once more. Bellard effortlessly dodges with his blade. The ring's mana suppresses the mana heart's flow, sending Adrian sliding backward. Yet in truth, to master the poem, Hadrian has trained hundreds of times and endured ring mana thousands more. Across those 100 bouts, he endured waves upon waves of hostile mana crashing against him. He brings his sword down, releasing the force of the stained say. His blade now feels fully realized in his grasp. Yet when he attacks once more, Bellard evades again. Adrian continues his assault, striking relentlessly, and for the first time Bellhard shows a flicker of unease. Bellard gathers all his strength and forces Adrian back. He accuses Adrian of arrogance for claiming that mana hearts are not all the same. Slamming his sword into the ground, he triggers a blast that hurls Adrian into the wall. Bellard declares himself bored and proclaims the fight finished, claiming victory. Adrian realizes that at ordinary ranks, heroic martial points alone are inefficient. Using his sword to stand, he begins recounting events from 4 centuries ago. He explains that the knights made a fatal mistake by erasing all their enemies. They trusted their legends, techniques, heartbeats, and poems to endure unchanged. But this era has forgotten the songs of dragons and giant kings, reducing them to myths deemed too absurd to be real. Bellard ignores him entirely, convinced Adrian is lost in fantasy. Adrian grows tired of the charade, seeing his uncle as arrogant and blind. Suddenly the demon within Blackhorn surges like a storm behind Adrian's eyes. He declares that if Bellard cannot grasp true power, he will be taught. Demonic hands engulf Adrian's body and mind. He begins chanting the dragon-slaying poem. His body strains under the immense force, parts of the song suppressed by rank, yet one verse remains dominant. Adrian repeats the mantra again and again. The verse's raw energy crashes into Bellhard as Adrian attacks. Bellard realizes that if it continues, death is a real possibility. Another violent explosion erupts. Adrian is blasted into the ground, and as the dust clears, Bellard reveals he used not one ring, but a full pentagon of rings. Adrian is thrilled nonetheless, even with all 4 rings active. His sword remains unscathed, cutting through ring mana by sheer mana heart force. He stands again, leaving Bellhard stunned as ring mana fails to surpass the mana heart. Adrian meets his uncle's gaze and states calmly that Bellhard has lost later. The dragon's song and sword ravage Adrian's fragile human body as he claws at the sheets. Gritting his teeth, he curses that damned guest of Sanctorum. Adrian understands the agony is the price for forcefully invoking Gesta Sanctorum, the poem of the decapitated dragon. His body is shattered, yet he knows the gamble was worth it. This is the first martial feat he forged entirely on his own, filling him with pride. He recites the poem repeatedly from the depths of his heart. The system shows a slight rise in his god of duels rank, enough for his duel with the 3rd prince. Suddenly Adelia interrupts him, overflowing with joy now that he has regained consciousness. She explains that after he collapsed, the queen was furious with Bellhard, angrier than ever before. Secretly, Adrian feels satisfied, thinking the scolding was well-deserved. Adelia adds that Bellhard requested to be notified the moment Adrian awoke. Displeased, Adrian lies back and claims he woke only briefly and needs rest. He knows failing to heal the spirit damaged by Gesta Sanctorum would cost him dearly. Past realities would bleed together until his mental boundaries collapse. He would become a hollow madman, lost within the sword's memories again. Even imagining that fate sends chills through him. He then tells Adelia about her ancestor Ang's Baron, the legendary swordmaster, and explains she should inherit the powers of Gesta Sanctorum. Adelia imagines how awe-inspiring her ancestor must have been. Adrian explains she must grow far stronger to truly wield the poem. He asks what she truly wishes to learn. Adelia freezes, eyes wide, hesitating as she stammers. At last, she blurts out her true feelings, declaring that she wants to become Adrian's sword. Adrian freezes, stunned by her declaration apparently. Some guests of Sanctorum begin with the call of a war trumpet. Others begin with a step across a different plane. Some are born through heartfelt oaths, just like Adelia's oath now, offering her life and devotion, forming a point of subordination. Adrian senses power, realizing this is Adelia's Gesta Sanctorum. Some Sanctorum guests also influence others, and here, a new Gesta Sanctorum takes shape, giving rise to a point of domination. The link binds master and servant, leaving Adrian stunned. The Sword Queen's descendant has granted him an unimaginable miracle. He smiles, thinking of the strength gained through her devotion. Her growth will directly fuel his own progress. He thanks her sincerely. Adelia looks at him with admiration, and Adrian feels confident in what lies ahead. A few days later, Adrian is within the kingdom. Bored senseless, he is approached by his mother, who asks about his condition. Adrian dislikes being questioned and struggles with people tied to the former owner. He remains awkward around his wary-looking mother. She asks if he resents his uncle, attempting to excuse him. She insists Bellord means no harm and urges Adrian to let it go, but when Adrian denies resentment, she suddenly yells that he absolutely should feel that way. Adrian is left confused about her intentions. Ever since shattering his uncle's pride, endurance has been difficult. He planted a heart demon in Bellhard, one that could consume his martial power. Adrian feels no sympathy, as that loss would be Bellhard's burden. His mother explains that Bellhard lived his life through swords, leaving him mentally rough. Recently, however, Bellhard supported Adrian and even persuaded the king to lift confinement early. Once freed, Adrian's tantrum put Bellord in a difficult position, making his anger understandable. Yet Adrian still behaves like an ungrateful child, wondering what he ever did to deserve such concern. During recovery, an old scholar named Nicol Marchiadel is summoned as tutor. Naturally, Adrian Leonberger refuses to cooperate. Nicol, Carls, and Adelia watch him thrash on the floor, while the scholar tries encouragement. The spoiled prince misunderstands entirely. After calming slightly, Adrian insists he needs no lessons. Seeing his confidence, Nicol proposes an alternative. They will simply converse, and if Adrian proves sufficient, the scholar will never return. By the end of the day, the prince burns with passion as he debates the nature of humanity. Niccolo even pointed him toward a book he thought would match the subject they had been discussing. The writing framed the bond between sovereign and people as a pact, where the ruler shared military and financial authority with power holders, who in return upheld the throne through allegiance. After years living as Gruhan, Adrian gradually accepted that any real bond required balance and mutual effort. Without realizing it, he noticed the entire day had slipped away. The elderly scholar straightened the workspace and formally wrapped up their meeting. As Niccolo departed, the prince beamed brightly, having never enjoyed casual conversation this much. The moment the door closed behind him, Adrian suddenly understood what had occurred. He had been cleverly guided into sitting through a complete lecture he never agreed to. The old scholar proved crafty, yet Niccolo himself was taken aback by the prince. The boy bore little resemblance to the image painted by rumors. Barred from training and spared from Niccolo's lessons, the prince had an empty schedule and nothing to do. Just before he could spiral into regret and idle misery, a visitor arrived. It was his uncle Balbalorhard, whose presence prompted him to rise. Adelia warmly greeted her lord's uncle at the door. Several days had passed since their last sparring session. Bale appeared worn and haunted, unable to shake the mental scar left by his troublesome nephew. That day, his uncle had come solely to offer an apology. He had betrayed his own resolve and injured the prince badly, and he refused to excuse himself. Although Adrian's wounds stemmed from pushing himself too far, his uncle clearly suffered from the fear of having harmed royal blood. Seeking to atone, Uncle Bale promised to grant the boy anything within his power. Even if it meant sacrificing his limbs or eyesight to make amends, Adrian saw his resolve. Feeling sympathy for such talent shackled by a petty inner struggle, Adrian chose kindness. The first prince calmly voiced what he wanted. All he asked for was a chance to go out for a while. His confinement had ended, and he deserved the freedom to leave. Yet he did not mean a simple outing, as his goal lay far beyond the capital. Organizing the plan would take effort, and distant destinations were off the table. Bale agreed without hesitation and immediately began arranging everything. Once his uncle departed, only Carls remained with the prince. He had expected a far more excessive request, since favors from a count were rare.
In truth, Adrian only wanted the old man to stop being so rigid, so he kept his request reasonable.
The boss's blunt honesty lightened the mood of the night. Suddenly, Adelia stepped in carrying a long-anticipated letter. It was a concise progress report sent by Lady Arwen Kurgayan. She had achieved a minor breakthrough and would soon be able to visit. Brief yet uplifting, the message arrived at exactly the right moment. 5 days later, Bale confirmed all preparations were complete, and 2 days after that, departure day came. Their first territory along the route was a fief known as Ellen. The prince was so thrilled that staying seated felt impossible. The county of Ellen served as the royal palace's primary arms supplier. It boasted iron mines for quality ore and a skilled blacksmith guild to shape it. Over half of the royal family's weapons and armor originated from Ellen. With his strength recently surging, Adrian longed to claim a new sword. His original plan to visit the royal armory failed after a direct order from the king. Given his own sluggish condition, he could hardly fault his father, and buying a weapon elsewhere worked just fine. Unexpectedly, his uncle treated the journey with great seriousness. Thus began a journey expected to last around 20 days. 3 days out they would reach Ellen, then continue another 2 days toward Iron Lion Castle. For now, Adrian was trapped in a carriage for 3 long days, painfully bored. Adelia sat opposite him, but she offered little entertainment. He decided his time might be better spent inspecting his mana heart. Due to excessive strain from using the dragon-slaying poem, it was completely drained. Slowly replenishing it again should be safe. He felt the carriage's constant shaking, the chilly wind slipping through the gaps, and the murmured conversations of nearby knights. He gathered the traces of mana born from those sensations. Gradually, his empty mana heart was restored and stabilized. To his astonishment, the new mana heart was far larger, a faint sign of greater potential. Pushing himself to wield the poem had reshaped his body on a fundamental level. His mana heart expanded, capable of storing far more energy than before. Through unconventional progress, he reached sword expert rank and deepened his link to the source. Some authority limits were lifted, and his third eye and ear improved dramatically. In short, one meditation session elevated him to a new tier. Every minor motion now felt noticeably different. He had undeniably advanced another step. After enduring 3 full days in the carriage, the caravan finally arrived at Ellin. The first prince was received with proper courtesy. Edgar and Torrance Ellen, sons of the city lord, personally escorted him. Considering their fatigue, Edgar suggested leading everyone to their rooms first. As he toured the Ellen mansion, Adrian understood why it was famed for weapon production. Weapons lined the halls, yet closer inspection revealed them as ornamental pieces unfit for real battle. From that initial glance alone, Adrian doubted this place held what he truly sought. He requested a visit to the local blacksmith guild instead, which Edgar readily approved. On the way, the lord cautioned him that blacksmiths were universally stubborn and blunt. Deep in their craft, they ignored even nobles, and Edgar urged Adrian to respect their devotion despite any offense. The furnace radiated overwhelming heat. Upon entering the workshop, the air thundered with iron being struck. Flames roared as bellows hissed relentlessly. Fire and steel moved in flawless synchronization under the smith's hands. Among the craftsmen gathered there, one presence stood apart. A single, crystal-clear sound stole the prince's breath away. An elderly man labored over a blade at the center of the room. His work seized Adrian's full attention. Each steady hammer strike echoed memories of Adrian's earliest days as Gruhan. Adelia gently wiped sweat from her lord's face, pulling him back from his nostalgic trance. While the rest of the forge paused to greet the prince, the old man never broke his rhythm. Edgar introduced the greeter as Saxon, the blacksmith guild's leader. Adrian hardly cared, as all he wanted was to witness the forging before him. Saxon tried to flatter royalty and barked at the old smith to stop and show respect. Adrian physically intervened, silencing him before he ruined the moment. Empty benches and uneasy glances from others told a clear story. It seemed the guild head had dismissed everyone without consulting them. To show proper respect, Adrian urged the blacksmiths to resume their work. With each craftsman returning to their station, the prince focused fully, continuing to watch what felt like pure art in motion.
He remained motionless, observing a bare-chested elderly man repeatedly driving his hammer into glowing steel.
The forging process held the prince's full attention without a shred of distraction. It felt as though he stood within a blazing, living world. Throughout all the years he had existed, he had never once experienced a sensation quite like this. After leaving the forge, Edgar explained that the old man had reforged and remelted the same sword for over half a year. Every blade he created was said to be flawless, a reputation worthy of his title as master artisan. Despite their perfection, he destroyed each one without hesitation. Worse still, he had barely slept for an entire month, giving himself wholly to his craft. Given his advanced age, such behavior was deeply concerning. In the days following their arrival in Ellen, the prince made a habit of visiting the forge from dawn until late night. He silently observed the master artisan endure his grueling daily routine. Despite the tension expected from the first prince's presence, no disturbances occurred, and his stay in Ellen quietly reached its final day. On the morning of departure, the artisan worked with even greater intensity. The prince wished to remain until the blade was complete, yet its completion time was unknowable. All he could do was leave with lingering regret. Too many responsibilities demanded his attention. On the night before leaving, Adrian ordered preparations for a farewell banquet. After the feast, Edgar rushed to his door at dawn, shouting excitedly about the finished sword. Exhausted but alert, the prince sprinted straight for the forge. There he saw the old man holding an awe-inspiring weapon. The artisan carefully polished the edges of his lethal creation. Once the blade was perfectly honed and spotless, the master artisan freely presented the weapon to the prince. Gazing upon the blade, words formed naturally in Adrian's mind. Forged with the heat of a rising sun and cooled to royal crimson, a sword befitting both sun and king had come into being. When discussion turned to naming the blade, the army's traditions were considered. The artisan proposed the name Damerung. To the smith it meant twilight, but to the prince it symbolized a new dawn. Once the weapon reached its destined owner, exhaustion overtook the old man. Before he collapsed, the prince caught him in his arms. Feeling the frailty of his pulse, Adrian decided to remain in Ellen another night. On his final bed, the artisan spoke of the first day the prince watched him work, when the sword appeared in his mind as if fate guided it. The blade itself chose its moment of birth, knowing its creator stood at life's edge. Gruen chose honesty at last, revealed his hidden truth. To Adrian's surprise, the old man accepted the revelation calmly. A blacksmith and a once-living sword could understand one another deeply. As his final wish, the artisan raised a trembling hand. He asked to hold the last sword he had forged one final time. Gripping the hilt, he blessed the blade to rival the greatness its owner once possessed. Adrian swore that it would fulfill that promise. Soon after, the old man breathed his last. At sunrise, Edgar hurried to the prince's tent to praise the new sword, Dame Rung. He argued that a soul-forged blade was unfit for combat and urged the prince to choose a magic weapon instead. He insisted a magical sword would serve far better in battle. Though not exceptional, Edgar's offered magic blade was at least solidly mid-tier. Seeing through the ploy, Adrian took the magic sword while firmly refusing to part with Dame Rung, ensuring compliance. He leveraged the Ellen family's loyalty to the crown to silence any objections. The noble could only accept the loss, having failed to trade one weapon and instead losing two. With no further delays, the caravan departed, cavalry racing ahead while infantry and carriages followed steadily. While heading toward his carriage, the prince ran into Uncle Bale. They had scarcely met in Ellen since Bale was occupied with other duties. From that point on, they rode hard to reach Iron Lion Fortress before nightfall. Ironically, the prince had never learned horseback riding, having lived far too long as a sword. The road was rough, forcing him to learn mid-journey, resulting in plenty of vomiting. Wild rearing horses and easily avoidable mishaps plagued the ride. Though it exceeded the planned half-day journey, they arrived after roughly a full day of hard riding. The welcome by House Warroden's Iron Lions reflected their renowned prestige. These knights carried far more fire than Adrian had anticipated. The reason was obvious, as their mood was sore. Their goddess had been taken by a disreputable prince. Amused by the tension, Adrian boldly approached Arwen. Meeting him, the honorable knight knelt and offered a flawless salute. The Iron Lions nearly attacked on the spot, reacting instantly. Adelia Burns responded just as quickly. If her hostility broke free now, disaster would follow. The prince quickly pulled her back from murderous fury. His steady conditioning of her obedience proved invaluable. He turned back to Arwen and invited the Thorns to accompany him elsewhere. Many stories remained untold, and it was best the lions followed. Upon arrival, the prince's first destination was the training grounds. Eager to witness the famed Iron Lions firsthand, Adrian issued an open challenge. His royal status, however, weighed heavily on the knights, so he swore under Leonberger's name that no consequences would follow today's duels. When reassurance failed, he provoked them, mocking their legendary reputation. Unable to endure the taunts, Dale of House Donnan stepped forward. Claiming unworthiness yet ready to fight, Dale took the bait, much to the prince's satisfaction. Dale charged first, wooden blade raised. Adrian met the strike with a thunderous counter that shattered Dale from the inside. His red-haired head slid through the mud of the field. One foe fell, and Adrian called for the rest to step forward. Next came Paul Rothheim, a third year compared to Dale's freshman rank. As expected, the youthful knight fell instantly. Hallie and then Judith followed, each learning that equality meant equal defeat. Every challenger sent by the proud Iron Lions was utterly crushed. The relentless beatdown lasted for half the day. Adrian emerged without a single wound. After dismantling the apprentices, the prince felt compelled to provoke the official knights, simply to stir even greater chaos. He loudly declared that Arwen would return home with him. The Thorn Rose accepted without hesitation. That announcement finally drew a response from an official Iron Lion. Knowing the prince's fondness for wagers, the knight proposed a bet to spice things up. Before the knight could make a fool of himself any further, Hadrian firmly intervened and made it clear Arwen was not some tournament reward, insisting they stake something else instead. He tossed aside the battered practice blade and requested a proper weapon from Carl's. The first prince drew the magic sword and boldly placed it as the wager for the duel. Anyone with functioning eyesight could tell the enchanted blade was immensely valuable. Though satisfied with the setup, Arwen still tried to offer herself as the stake, forgetting she was far more priceless than any weapon. The worth of a future swordmaster simply cannot be measured against crafted steel. Dunham of House Fahrenheit stepped forward to accept, an official Iron Lion knight nearing a triple chain breakthrough. In practical terms, he was already functioning at double chain strength. His sword was the 17th piece forged by the master artisan, and to keep things fair, he risked it in single combat as well. Treating this clash with newfound seriousness, the prince resolved to wield his true primary weapon. In his grasp rested the master's 100th and final blade, completed only days earlier. Dunham ignited his chains and, despite disagreeing with the prince's chosen sword path, acknowledged the effort behind it and pledged his full strength and respect. Adrian doubted he would ever grow accustomed to people politely labeling his monoheart as a misguided rout. He understood that any admiration aimed at him truly belonged to those who labored tirelessly by his side. The prince quietly asked his knight-in-training maid, Adelia, to observe the upcoming duel with unwavering attention. This chosen road was one the two of them would continue walking together. Stirred by her lord's presence, Adelia instinctively synchronized with his aura from behind. Without hesitation, she stood ready to fulfill whatever her prince desired or required.